And then day 2 I never started, so this should be brand new. So new story for day 2. McSkiddy needs to check if any other employee elves have left or been affected by the Grinch industry attack. The systems that hold the employee information have been hacked. Can you hack them back to determine if the other teams in the Best Festival Company have been affected? So we need to understand the underlying technology of web servers, how the web communicates, understand what cookies are and their purpose, learn how to manipulate and manage cookies for malicious use. Your computer and a web server communicate with each other in an intermediary protocol. An intermediary protocol is required. This is where the HTTP Hypertext Transfer Protocol is introduced. HTTP protocol is a client-server protocol to provide communication between a client and web server. HTTP requests are similar to a standard TCP network request. However, HTTP adds a specific header to the request to identify the protocol and other information. When a HTTP request is crafted, the method and target header will always be included. Target header will specify what to retrieve from the server, and the method header will specify how. When retrieving information from a web server, it's common to use the get method, such as loading a picture. When sending data to a web server, it's common to use post, such as sending logging information. So there's an example: get request to the TryHackMe.com. That's the browser user agent, and then this is where that referrer came from. So once the server receives a request, it will send back a response including any requested content if it's successful, and a status code. Status code is used to tell the client browser how the web server interpreted the request. Most common successful status is a HTTP 200 OK. So then we've got an example. So we had a 200 success. It was an Nginx server. The date, what type of content was returned, and what length of the string it was. And then this is the content. The protocol itself is only one small piece of the puzzle. Once content is retrieved from the web server, your browser needs a way to interpret and render the information sent. Web applications are commonly formatted in HTML, rendered and styled in CSS. JavaScript is also commonly used to provide additional functionality. In today's web environment, the use of web frameworks has significantly increased in popularity. Most modern web apps use many web frameworks and other web solutions so an end user does not see or interact with. More information. So they've got like links to labs, which is quite cool. I quite like that. Cookies. HTTP is a stateless protocol. When you send a request to a server, the server cannot distinguish your request from someone else's. To solve the stateless problem and identify different users and access levels, the web server will assign a cookie to create and manage a stateful session between client and server. Cookies are tiny pieces of data, metadata, or information locally stored on your machine, sent to the server when you make the request. Cookies can be assigned any name, any value, allowing the web server to store any information it wants. Today we'll be focusing on authentication cookies, also known as a session cookie. Authentication or session cookies are used to identify you and what access level is attached to your session. Below is a diagram describing assigning and using a cookie from the initial request to the session request. So this is you with your browser. You make a request to a service. This login request, it responds with the set cookie. And then when you access a protected endpoint, it returns OK because you've authenticated and got your cookie set. To begin the process, you send the request, such as the login. Your browser will send that information as a post request. This is what I've already kind of covered here. Web server will verify that you received the data and sets a cookie. As previously mentioned, cookies are arbitrary. The values are determined by best practice or the web developer. Either by best practice or
Thank
the dev.
you for the follow.
Hey QZ Linux, how are you? Once the cookie is assigned, As long as the cookie stays locally stored in your browser, all future GET requests will be automatically sent with that cookie to identify you and your access level. Once the server receives your GET request and the cookie, it will locate and deserialize your session. Deserialization is the process of taking data such as JSON and rebuilding it as an object. If successful, the web server will reply with your request with a 200 response. Okay, so now we understand what cookies are. Let's dive into contents. So cookies are made up of 11 different components. You can find an explanation of each component in the table. So you can set names, any value, domains, paths, expiry, size, HTTP only, secure, same site, same party, priority. So we look at all the components. They seem intimidating. There's no need to worry as attackers. We only need to concern ourselves with two components, the name and value. The rest of the components are handled by the web server. Cookie components are always prepped in pairs. The main pair is name value. This will define the name of the cookie and the value of the name. That was really weird to say, but anyway, yeah. So it's a key pair. Second pair is the attribute value pair, which will be defined as an attribute of the cookie and a value of the attribute. Below is what an example of set cookie looks like. So you receive this, it says set the cookie, and then you get cookie name equals cookie value, domain equals domain value, secure, HTTP only. So those two are quite important. So you get the secure, make sure that you only send it over an encrypted network, and HTTP only, cookie cannot be accessed through a client-side script like JS. So very, very good. Cookie manipulation, taking the cookie and modifying it to obtain unintended behavior determined by the web developer. Cookie manipulation is possible because cookies are stored locally on your host system, meaning you have complete control over them and modify them as you please. To begin modifying and manipulating cookies, you need to open our DevTools in Chrome or Firefox. You just access that by pressing F12, Control-Shift-I. Once the DevTools are open, you can access the Storage tab and then select cookies in the drop-down. Cookie values seem random at first, however they often have the encoded value or meaning behind them. I mean, obviously, because otherwise you wouldn't set them. And then they could be decoded to a non-arbitrary value such as a JavaScript object. From an attacker perspective, you can decode the cookie value to identify the underlying objects. Once you have identified underlying objects, you can modify them to whatever you want. Use the cookie, you will need to encode it back to the original encoding and replace the cookie value. So this is a decode. This is the JS object. So you have that. Now we have all the pieces of the cookie and how to manipulate them. We can put them together to gain unintended access. So we're going to obtain a cookie from registering. And we'll do that. So let's get rid of this thing. It should be another one. So yeah, if I close this, you can either F12, or you should have an option up here as well to web developer. Where is it? Where is it? I guess that one will show it. No, that's just the JS console. Just toggle tools. Oh yeah, there we go. Sweet. So yeah, you get this, and then it's just storage tab. Just expand cookies. So at the moment, this site hasn't set anything. But if I sign up, password, it's just the email at email.com, and it's Guessing it doesn't care what password you set. Uh-oh, you don't have permission. And yeah, here we go. So we've got a user auth name with a value of that. Contact an administrator for more assistance. So what have we got here? We've got... We see this in a better... Notepad or something. It's cherry tree. I don't know what. I haven't used this for ages. This text. Text editor, you'll do. So we've got some encoded value. And then what does it want us to do? So we need to decode the cookie value. So if we chuck into something like CyberChef, what are we thinking? From hex. So the company, the best festival company, is registered true, username msec. So if we want to mess around with that, we want to open another copy. So this time our input is going to be that, and we're going to go 2 hex. Get rid of that. Go away. Alright, so we want the same, we want to be registered, but we want to be... I don't know what administrator, let's try that. So if we take that output, see if it matters if I've got spaces. Yeah, I do. No, don't put a delimiter in. How do we clean that up so it's just got, I don't want spaces in between. Do we have like a trim? Find a space, replace with nothing, that's better. Alright. Refresh. Is it because we've still got that? It's just admin. Oh yeah, that worked. I think. So if it was admin, what's the name of the new cookie that was created for your account? So we got that. That was user auth. Sweet. What encoding type was used the cookie value hex. What do they want to put in there? What's the format? Encoding type. It's not. Wasn't that? Oh, unless they want hexadecimal, like the actual word. Hexadecimal. Really? I've decoded it. Or has it got an actual type? What format is the data in the... Okay, so this one was hex. No? JSON. Yeah. What encoding type? How the fuck do you find out the encoding type? Am I just spelling hexadecimal wrong? Hexa. There you go, yeah. Yeah, God, I need to learn to spell. Right, so you manipulate cookie and log in, access the portal. What's the answer of the administrator cookie? So it's this. What team environment is not responding? So here we need to see, so HR. What team environment has a network warning? You know what these are? It's hard to tell what they what they mean by network warning. Probably it's going to be one of them, but we assume this one. It's got a lot slower speed. So we do application. Yeah. I don't know if that's right though. It should, yeah, indicated by yellow symbol. I don't know how, like, can't really make that out. I don't. Is that just offline, online, and then a bit iffy? If you want to learn more about authentication bypasses, try out the room. Authentication bypass, cool. So I don't need to do anything for that. Tasks released each day, get harder, come back tomorrow. Don't need to do anything for that. Did I do that one? Yes. Alright, that's day 2.